They didn't forget me. That would have hurt less. They planned it. Said the words with smiles and sunscreen in their voices. "We're taking a family road trip, Mum. Just meet us in Phoenix." No need to ride along. Just meet us there. We already booked the hotel. It'll be fun. The kids are excited. So I packed my bag, folded clothes carefully. One blouse with little blue flowers they always said made me look too old. I brought it anyway. The bus left Santa Fe at 7:05 a.m. Greyhound, 2 stops, no cushion, no conversation. Just hours of silence and engine hum. I clutched my handbag like it had answers in it. The driver offered me help with my suitcase. He must have seen the stiffness in my hands. But I said no. I still carry what's mine. At 3:12 p.m., I stood outside the Mariposa Suites in Phoenix, Arizona. A laminated sign in the window advertised continental breakfast and family-friendly pool. I waited on the bench beside the entrance, wore my sun hat, reapplied lipstick in the reflection of the glass door. I waited. 4 o'clock. 5. I called twice. No answer. Texted. No reply. At 5:37 p.m., a woman came out with her little girl, maybe 6, in a Minnie Mouse shirt, clutching a plush Goofy. I asked her if there was a convention nearby. "No," she said. "Everyone's going to Disneyland. Spring break, you know?" My hands shook, but only a little. At 6:22 p.m., my daughter texted, "Hey Mom, hope you're okay. Change of plans. We ended up going to Disneyland instead. It was kind of last minute. The kids begged. Hope you understand. Love you." No period. 2 exclamation marks. I sat, very still. The bench felt harder than before. I typed no reply. What could I say? Enjoy the fireworks? Thanks for the bench? I booked the cheapest room the hotel had. The clerk, a boy who looked younger than my grandson, asked if I wanted 1 bed or 2. "Just the one," I said. "It's just me." The room smelled like old lemons and tired soap. The bedspread was scratchy. There was a plastic ice bucket with a paper liner and a remote with half the buttons rubbed off. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the TV until it asked me if I was still watching. Yes, I was still watching. In the morning, I took the bus home. Same driver, different silence. I didn't cry. I didn't feel rage. I just felt something very cold settle into my chest. Not anger, not pain, just clarity. They had not forgotten me. They had removed me. Not suddenly. No. Little by little. With cheerful voices and polite excuses. "We just need a little space." "It's too far for you, Mom." "Next time." And then, finally, not even a goodbye, just goofy dolls and magic passes. I got off the bus 2 blocks early, walked the rest of the way. The spring air smelled like citrus and dust. The streets were quiet. When I got home, I unlocked the door, walked into my small apartment, and placed my suitcase gently by the hall table. Then I sat down, and I didn't move for a long time. I didn't make tea, didn't check the mail, didn't call anyone. I just sat. My hands folded in my lap like I was waiting for a sermon to begin. But no sermon came. No lesson. No voice from above. Only the sound of the fridge humming and a bird calling out somewhere beyond my kitchen window. That's when it started. Not the grief. I'd already done that, years ago. Not the bitterness. That never suited me. No, what started was something else. Something slow and sharp and honest. I wasn't waiting anymore. And I wasn't going to ask again. The ride back from Phoenix was quiet. Too quiet to distract from the ache behind my knees, or the thoughts that pressed in like fog. I watched the desert roll by. Flat, wide, beige. A coyote crossed the highway at one point. No one else noticed. No one ever does. I sat near the back of the bus. A boy with earbuds slept 2 rows up, mouth open, head lolling with every turn. An older woman in front of me kept adjusting her purse. The strap kept sliding. She never cursed, just muttered. I liked that. I didn't speak to anyone. Didn't need to. I'd already said too many words in my life that landed nowhere. Words like, "Of course I don't mind," and "Don't worry about me." Words that taste like wallpaper glue after a while. Tasteless, invisible, dry. The bus arrived in Santa Fe just before sunset. I stepped off, suitcase dragging behind me like a second spine. The wheels caught every crack in the pavement. Still, I didn't ask for help. I used to. When I thought asking meant someone would listen, now I know better. The walk home wasn't long. My apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, barely enough space for a proper rug. But it was mine. Not much in life ever truly is, and even less stays that way. But that little space between those thin walls, that was mine. Inside, I took off my shoes and left them by the door. I didn't unpack. I didn't call Elaine, even though I knew she'd answer and say something like, "People are so selfish these days, honey." I didn't want sympathy. I wanted silence. And silence, at least, doesn't lie. I sat at the table, poured myself a glass of water. The glass was chipped. I kept it anyway. It reminded me that things can still hold without being perfect. Then I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the hotel receipt. Crumpled. Faintly smelling of chlorine and hallway air freshener. I laid it on the table and smoothed it with my hand. "Change of plans," she wrote. No apology, not even a question. Just a statement, as if it hadn't cost me anything to believe her. But it had. It cost me trust I didn't have spare anymore. That night, I pulled out the box I kept under my bed. It was dented in the corner, taped twice, labelled only with a faded sticker that once said, "Xmas lights." It didn't hold lights anymore. It held memory. Inside were folders, receipts, letters, photos. Not many. My husband never liked clutter, and I always thought memory should be held in the body, not just on paper. But I kept enough. I pulled out one envelope, thick, yellowing, addressed to both of us, Paul and Evelyn Mathis. The handwriting was his, slanted, firm. I ran my finger across it. Paul. God, it had been 12 years. And still, some nights, I swore I could hear him cough in the other room. I used to get up and check. Not anymore. Now I know better. I opened the envelope. Inside, a copy of our home deed, the one we bought in 1979. 2 bedrooms, sagging porch, linoleum counters that peeled at the edges like old fruit. But it was a castle to us. We raised our daughter in that house. We painted the walls ourselves. Seafoam green, because I had read somewhere it made rooms feel bigger. We planted wildflowers that never behaved. We fought, laughed, mourned, celebrated. We lived. After he passed, I rented it out. Too many memories, too many stares. But I never sold it. I never put it in her name. People forget how easy it is to lose things once they stop checking the locks. That deed was still mine. I looked at it, and I didn't feel regret. I felt alignment, like something inside me had been lopsided for a while and was quietly clicking back into place. The next morning, I called Walter. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice groggy but warm. "Evelyn?" he said. "How long's it been?" "Too long," I replied. Then I added, "I need to talk." He didn't ask why. He never had to. It was 1978 when Paul first mentioned buying a house. We were sitting in a diner just off Highway 84, sharing a plate of pancakes, because back then even breakfast was a negotiation. The kind of broke that didn't feel like failure, just math. He looked at me over his coffee and said, "We could build something." I laughed. With what? Pocket lint and good intentions? But he wasn't joking. That was Paul. Quiet, steady, never big on dreaming, but when he said a thing, he meant to do it. 3 months later, we signed a mortgage on a place with a cracked walkway and a broken mailbox. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a backyard full of rocks and cigarette butts. It looked tired, like it had been waiting for us. We fixed it piece by piece, on weekends, at night after work. We couldn't afford contractors. We had hands, and they were young then. Paul patched drywall, rewired outlets. I stripped old wallpaper until my fingers blistered. We painted every wall twice because the first colour looked too much like sadness. We settled on warm white. That house wasn't beautiful, but it held. When Lauren was born, we cleared out the smaller room, painted it soft yellow. I made curtains from old bed sheets. Paul hung a mobile above the crib made of wire and bottle caps. It looked ridiculous, but she loved it. We didn't have much, but we had her. That was enough. There were birthday parties with homemade cakes that leaned sideways, summers where the grass scorched brown, but Lauren still ran barefoot through it like it was Eden. Winters where the heater clicked all night, but never quite reached the corners of the house. We made it work. Paul used to sit on the porch in the evenings, beer in one hand, calloused fingers tapping the railing like it was a drum. He'd say, "It's not much, Ev, but it's ours. No one can take that." And for a while, I believed him. He died in that house. Cancer doesn't care what you built or how hard you tried to keep things standing. It just comes in and takes. Quiet at first, then loud. By the time we knew, it was already too late. I turned the guest room into a hospice space. Bought a hospital bed off a neighbour for $40. He slept under the same ceiling we once painted with a borrowed roller. Died with sunlight on his face. After the funeral, I couldn't walk through the living room without hearing him breathe. I left the house in the hands of a property manager and moved into a duplex across town. It was supposed to be temporary. Then Lauren called. She said, "Why don't you come live with us? The kids would love it. We have the space." At first, I said no. I liked my routines. I liked knowing my tea kettle was where I left it, that no one touched my yarn or rearranged the spices alphabetically. But loneliness is a quiet thief. It doesn't break in. It knocks gently. Brings you tea. Offers a place at the table. So I packed a few things. Gave Lauren the old photo albums. Said I'd come for a while. Just a while. She met me at the door with a smile and a to-do list. The room they gave me was neat. A bed, a dresser, a window facing the neighbour's wall. She said I could decorate, then took down the photos I'd hung because they didn't match the colour scheme. I told myself it was just adjustment. That family meant compromise. But little things began to disappear. My ceramic mug, the Afghan I crocheted. She said they'd been misplaced. She said I should relax. I stopped watching TV after 10 because they said it kept the baby awake. I stopped baking because Eric didn't like the smell of cinnamon. I stopped sitting on the porch because my chair made the deck look cluttered. One evening, I heard her tell a friend on the phone, "She's not a problem, just always here. Like furniture?" I went to bed early that night, folded my hands and stared at the ceiling fan. And now, sitting here decades later, deed in hand, Walter's voice on the line waiting, I understand something I didn't back then. The house wasn't just wood and roof. It was proof that I had built something that mattered, and it was still mine. Walter lived in the same adobe house he'd had since the 60s, tucked on a quiet street with cracked sidewalks and bougainvillea vines that reached too far into the road. I rang the bell at 9:58 a.m. He opened the door with one slipper on and a pen behind his ear. "You look exactly the same," he said. I look like I've been stepped on. He grinned. Then at least you're still standing. The smell inside hadn't changed. Dust, old wood, and lemon oil. His kitchen table still had the same burn mark from the time his nephew dropped a soldering iron during a science project. Walter made tea. 2 mugs. No milk. No questions yet. When we sat, I handed him the deed. He looked it over, then glanced up. You never added her name? No. Good. We didn't speak for a moment. The tea steamed between us, the way it used to after Paul passed and I came here just to not cry at home. Walter had been Paul's best friend, and after the funeral, he'd quietly checked on me every month, never intrusively, just enough to make sure I was still eating, still sleeping, still there. Now he turned the paper slowly, as if it could bruise. Everything's in order, he said. You're the sole owner. Property tax has been current all these years? I've paid on time. Auto debit. He nodded. You want to sell? I want to remember who I am. He leaned back. I can draft paperwork. Discreet. Private showings only. You don't need her signature, her permission, her blessing. I know. And you're sure? I'm done being extra in my own story, Walter. He looked at me with something between respect and quiet mourning. I remember when you moved in there. Paul had just finished sanding the stairs, and you said it smelled like hope and sawdust. I smiled. It did. We spent the next hour going over details. I didn't rush. I let each paper settle before I signed. My name, still mine, still whole. When we finished, he poured another cup of tea and said, What happens when she finds out? She already made her choice, Walter. I'm just making mine. I left with a folder under my arm. It felt heavier than it should have. Not from paper, from memory. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table and laid out everything. Deed, timeline, my copy of the rental agreement, property tax receipts, insurance documents. I sorted them like a woman building a puzzle she'd been missing the edge pieces for. And then I called a realtor. Her name was Angela, mid-40s, mother of twins, quick with a laugh. I picked her because she used to work the reference desk at the local library when Lauren was little. I remembered her kindness when I came in looking for picture books on a tight budget. She remembered me, too. You want to list? She asked. Yes. How fast? As fast as you can move without being careless. She paused. It's occupied, right? Not for long. She didn't push, just said, I'll come by tomorrow. I'll walk the perimeter. You don't have to be there. Thank you. After I hung up, I sat still for a long time. The kitchen clock ticked like a judge with no face. Then I stood, walked to the hall closet, pulled down the old suitcase, the one I hadn't touched in years, the one I used when I first moved in with Lauren, thinking I was stepping into closeness, not quiet erasure. I unzipped it, checked the lining, cleaned out a receipt from 2015. Then I placed it on the chair by the window, let it sit there, not packed yet, but waiting. And this time, it wasn't going to Phoenix. The next morning, Angela called right at 8:00. I walked the property, she said. It's in better shape than most. The bones are good. Yard needs trimming. But that garden, Evelyn, it still blooms. Of course it does. I had planted that rosemary myself. Bought the bush from a roadside vendor who threw in a few packets of basil seeds because I reminded him of his mother. I used to say the garden grew better when I sang to it. Lauren laughed, but the blooms never missed a season. Angela continued, We'll need a couple high-resolution shots. I'll schedule a photographer, but I can write up the listing now if you're ready. I'm ready. She hesitated. Do you want to give them a heads up? No. You're sure? I gave them years of heads up, Angela. Understood. She got quiet. then said, softer this time, "You're doing the right thing." I didn't answer. I just looked out the window where the morning light came in sideways and made everything look dustier than it was. Later that afternoon, I walked to the house. I still had a key, of course. Lauren never asked for it back. Probably didn't think it mattered. She assumed I'd stay in her guest room like a misplaced book. Useful sometimes, mostly invisible. The house looked the same. Pale blue paint, white trim, the porch I once scrubbed on my knees with lemon soap. A ceramic frog sat by the step. I bought it once as a joke. Lauren rolled her eyes. Eric said nothing. It stayed. I didn't go inside, just walked around the perimeter while Angela took photos. She was professional, didn't ask questions, didn't make pity faces, just clicked her camera and made quiet notes. When she finished, she handed me a clipboard. "Sign here to authorize the listing." I took the pen. My hand didn't shake. And that, more than anything, told me I was no longer the woman who packed shortbread cookies for ungrateful guests or apologized for needing a place to sit. Angela smiled. "We'll go live tomorrow at 8 a.m. Market's strong. Expect calls by noon." I nodded. As she walked away, she said over her shoulder, "You're not invisible, you know." "I know," I replied, and I meant it. That night, I sat by my own window, not theirs, brewed tea the way I liked it, strong, dark, no sugar. I opened my notebook. Not the legal one, not yet. The other one. The soft blue one with the fabric cover. The one with a pressed flower between the pages from a bush Paul planted back in '83. I wrote, "Day 1. Angela says it will sell quickly. I believe her. It's not just a house. It's evidence." Then I closed the book, turned off the light, and slept better than I had in months. Morning came with sunlight and something else. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Readiness. At 8:14 a.m., the listing went live. By 8:36, Angela had her first inquiry. By 9:12, a second. By 10:41, a third. By noon, I had offers. Not questions, not delays, offers. One of them was from a retired teacher who said she wanted a quiet space to write. Another was from a couple relocating from Oregon. But the one I looked at longest was from a woman in her 50s named Carol. Divorced. Quiet voice. Asked if there was rosemary in the garden because it reminded her of her grandmother. Angela said hers was the lowest offer. But she seems serious. "She's the one," I said. "You sure?" "She still sees the flowers." Angela nodded. "That's reason enough." And it was. It wasn't the price that mattered. It was the intention. Carol didn't want to flip the house, didn't want to tear up the garden or repaint the walls or gut the kitchen to make it look like something from a catalogue. She wanted to sit in the yard. She wanted to write. She wanted rosemary and silence and a chance to begin again. That I understood. Angela drew up the papers by evening. She sent me the contract to review. I put on my reading glasses, the old ones, the ones I wore back when Paul and I used to sit in bed and read separate books under the same lamp, and I read every line. Then I signed. Just like that, the house wasn't mine anymore, but it also wasn't theirs. It was never really about the building. It was about the story it held, and who had the right to tell it. For years, Lauren walked through those rooms like she was owed their quiet, as if my silence was a resource she could spend without asking, as if I stayed because I had nowhere else to go. She never understood. I stayed because I remembered what it once meant. Now I remembered something else, what it meant to leave. I didn't tell her about the sale. Not then. I let the paperwork do the talking. 2 days later, the documents arrived at the house. Official, notarized, final. The new owner would take possession within the week. There were instructions, a timeline, a legal notice of tenancy termination signed by me, not Mom, not Evelyn, just E. Mathis. I imagined the envelope in her hand, her mouth opening just slightly, the sound of paper rustling as reality settled into her throat. She called at 6:14 p.m. I let it ring. Then again at 6:29, then 6:45, then 7:03. Each call stacked like bricks. I turned my phone face down on the table and went back to folding laundry, my towels, my schedule, my choice. At 8:00, she left a message. Mum, what the hell? What are you doing? You can't sell the house. We live here. This isn't funny. Call me back. Now. There it was again. We. As if I hadn't signed the first mortgage, as if I hadn't scrubbed those floors while she napped on the couch, as if I hadn't grown herbs in that yard and cooked every Christmas dinner and listened to every door slam when she was a teenager with too much noise in her chest. We. But there was no we. In that moment, I sat outside the Mariposa Suites, waiting for a daughter who never came. There was just me. That night, I poured myself a glass of red wine, the kind Paul never liked. Too dry, he'd say. I lit a small candle, not for ambiance, just for company. Then I wrote another line in my notebook. Day 3. She knows now. Still no apology, only panic. I closed the book, stared out the window. Across the street, a woman walked her dog, slow and loose, like she had nowhere urgent to be. I liked that pace, that knowing. At 10:17, Lauren called again. I didn't answer. At 10:31, she texted, "We can talk about this. Please." But I wasn't interested in talking. I was interested in memory, and mine had started sharpening again. They thought my silence was surrender. It wasn't. It was a ledger. And now I was settling accounts. She came to my apartment the next morning, didn't call first, didn't ask. Just showed up, like the years hadn't happened, like she still held the keys to my time. I saw her through the peephole. Tight ponytail, designer sunglasses, face too calm for someone who'd left her mother on a bench in another city. I didn't open the door right away. I let her knock again. Not out of cruelty, just to make space for the silence between us to speak first. When I did open it, I didn't say hello. She stepped back a little. Not much. Just enough to remember I had a threshold she didn't own. "Can I come in?" she asked. "You're already halfway there," I said, stepping aside. She walked in, looked around like she hadn't seen it before. She hadn't. Not since I moved here. She never asked. I didn't offer tea. She didn't sit. "I got the papers?" she began. "I know. Is this a joke?" "No." Her mouth tightened. She looked down at her hands, manicured, pale pink polish, the kind that says, "I have time for self-care, but not for apologies." "You sold it," she said. "Yes, but we live there. You stay there. That's different." She blinked like I'd slapped her. "Why now?" I said nothing. She moved to the window, looked out, then back at me. "You blindsided us." I raised an eyebrow. "Like Phoenix?" "That was—" she started, then stopped. "That was different." It was. Her voice softened. "The kids didn't mean anything by it. They were just excited. Eric thought—" "I didn't ask about Eric." She went quiet again. Then, "You're really going to do this?" I already did. The room settled into quiet, like a blanket falling. Finally, she asked, "Where are we supposed to go? You have incomes, savings, friends, options." She stared at me, then sat, finally, at the edge of the couch like a student called into the principal's office. "Mom," she said, "I didn't mean to hurt you." "No, Lauren," I said. "You just didn't care if you did." That broke something. I saw it. Her shoulders slumped, Her eyes blinked too fast. Then she tried again. Is there any way to fix this? You can start by not calling it yours. The silence was louder after that. It didn't scream. It pulsed. I stood. You'll need to be out in 6 days. Carol gets the keys at noon. She stood too. Carol? The woman who bought the house. Right, she said quietly. At the door, she turned. You didn't even say goodbye. You didn't either, I replied, and I closed the door behind her, not fast, just firmly. Then I sat at my table, opened my notebook, and wrote, Day 4. She wants time, but not understanding. I gave her both, for years. Now I'm giving the key to someone who sees the rosemary. I spent the next morning in silence. No music, no television, no chatter. Just the rhythm of my breath and the sound of the wind pushing against the window pane. There's a kind of clarity that only arrives when you stop trying to fill the quiet. I made tea. Black, strong, 2 bags. Let it steep too long. I didn't care. The suitcase still sat by the chair. I hadn't packed it yet, but I liked seeing it there. A signal, a promise, not of escape, but of movement, of claiming space again, not waiting for it to be offered. The doorbell rang at 10:12 a.m. It wasn't Lauren. It was a courier. Envelope. Signature required. Inside, a printed letter from Eric's office. Cold. Formal. Full of legal language that tried very hard not to sound like begging. We respectfully request a delay in the transfer of ownership, citing family hardship and logistical complications. We hope this can be resolved amicably. No, dear Evelyn, no, we're sorry. Just bullet points and law. I placed the letter on the table. Didn't even fold it, just let it lie there like a broken wing. Then I walked to the closet and pulled out a small metal box from the top shelf. Inside, I kept the only thing more complete than the deed. Every document with my signature on it that had ever meant something. Paul's will, my first teaching certificate. A picture of Lauren at graduation with my handwriting on the back. She did it. God, she really did it. I added the letter to the box. Because sometimes you save things not out of sentiment, but so you remember how clearly the truth showed itself. At noon, I walked to the library. Not for books, just to sit in a place where silence is sacred, not awkward. I watched people come and go, mothers with toddlers, students. One man with a walking cane and a newspaper. Everyone passing through time like it was just another hallway. When I returned home, the phone rang. It was Angela. They're trying to stall, she said. I know. Should I respond? No. Carol's waiting. Let's not keep her. She hesitated. You're handling this better than most would. I've had practice. That night, I baked. Not out of routine, out of memory. Banana bread, the way Paul liked it. I hadn't baked it in years. The oven clicked as it warmed, and the smell wrapped around the room like old stories. I sliced it while still warm, ate a piece, froze the rest. Then I wrote in my notebook, Day 5. They sent paper. But I have memory, and memory doesn't plead. It builds, and it holds. I slept soundly, no dreams. Just a calm stretch of dark where nothing chased me. No late-night phone calls, no texts. Just sleep. In the morning, I woke up early, opened the window, let the light in. The wind carried the scent of sun on stone and the faintest trace of something green. Rosemary, maybe, or just the memory of it. The day before Carol moved in, I went back to the house one last time. Angela met me at the gate. She was holding a clipboard, phone tucked between shoulder and ear, multitasking her way through final checks. When she saw me, she ended the call and nodded. All set, she said. Carol's arriving at noon. She's bringing a small truck, just a few things, wants to ease in slow. That's good, I said. Are you sure you want to go in alone? I've already been alone, I replied. This won't be new. She gave me space, the kind of respect that doesn't come with pity. Then she walked to her car and left. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the gate, the latch still stuck. I remembered Paul jiggling it, promising to fix it every spring. He never did. Funny how the things they forget to fix become the things you miss the most. Inside, the yard was quieter than I remembered. The rosemary bush had overgrown a bit, reaching toward the walkway like it was trying to pull someone back in. I brushed my hand along it gently. The scent clung to my fingers. The porch creaked under my feet. The door opened with a familiar sigh. The house was empty, walls bare, floors clean. The echo of steps sounded like a reminder. I walked through each room, slowly. The living room, where Paul once danced with Lauren, badly, just to make her laugh. The kitchen, where I burned the first Thanksgiving turkey, and we ate sandwiches without complaint. The hallway where Lauren used to line up her stuffed animals like they were waiting for roll call. The bedrooms, both of them. The one where I gave birth during a storm because the roads were flooded and Paul said, "We're already halfway there." And the other where I sat for nights in a row after he died, unable to sleep, holding his sweater like it was a life jacket. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. I'd done my grieving. Now I was remembering. There's a difference. Grief begs. Memory witnesses. I stood in the center of the house and closed my eyes, listened. The quiet was kind. Not empty, just full of what had been. Then I took the key from my pocket, laid it gently on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation, just the key. Clean. Final. I walked out without looking back. At home, I brewed tea. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wait for a message. At 12:11, Angela texted, "Carol's in, said the place feels lived in the best way." She asked if the rosemary has a story. I told her, "Of course it does." I smiled. Then I wrote in my notebook, "Day 6, the house is no longer mine. But what I gave it will stay. Roots don't ask permission to hold." I looked at the window, and for the first time in years, I felt like the view was looking back. The calls stopped. For 2 days, no messages, no texts, just quiet. The kind that follows a storm, where nothing's broken, but everything feels rearranged. I didn't celebrate. I didn't relax. I just noticed. Sometimes absence isn't peace, it's strategy. On the 3rd day, a letter arrived, not typed, not signed by Eric's office, just folded, hand-addressed. Lauren's handwriting, smaller than I remembered, tighter. I didn't open it right away. I laid it on the table, beside the notebook, beside the soft pencil I'd sharpened to a quiet point. I made tea. I drank it slowly. Only when the cup was empty did I pick up the envelope and pull the letter out. "Mum, I don't know what to say. I'm trying to understand why you'd do this without talking to us first. I get that you're angry. I guess you should be. But this feels like punishment, not just a choice. I thought we were family. I thought we were doing our best. I didn't know you felt like you were being erased. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I really didn't. But now the kids are confused. They keep asking why Grandma made them leave. I don't know what to tell them. We're staying with Eric's sister until we figure things out. It's fine. It's not permanent. But this doesn't feel right. Call me, please." I read it twice, not looking for apology, looking for recognition. It wasn't there. She said she didn't mean to, but I wasn't angry because she meant to hurt me. I was done because she didn't mean not to. There's a difference. I folded the letter and slid it into the back of my notebook. Not out of sentiment, just for record. Then I pulled out a blank page and wrote, "Day 9. She wants to talk. She wants comfort, but still no space for truth. I closed the book and stood up. That afternoon, I walked downtown. I hadn't done that in a while. Not for errands, just to move, to see if the world still turned without asking me to explain myself. I passed the bakery Paul used to like, still open, still smelled like burnt sugar and good intentions. I bought a small loaf. No reason. At the corner, I passed a park bench. Empty. Clean. Sunlight warming the wooden slats. I sat. People moved around me. A mother feeding a child slices of apple. A teenager pacing with his phone, arguing with someone far away. A man with a cane nodding to every person who passed, like he knew something they didn't. The bench was firm. No cushion. Just presence. I thought about Phoenix. I thought about that hotel bench, the one where I waited, lipstick freshly applied, heart open, stupidly, like a porch light on in broad daylight. And I realized something. I wasn't angry at her for going to Disneyland. I was done because I'd spent too many years packing bags no one asked me to bring. I stood, walked home with the bread under my arm like it meant something. At the apartment, I sliced it, ate a piece. Then I wrote, Day 9, continued. I used to wait on benches. Now I walk past them. The door is still closed, and I don't need to answer it. Angela called just before noon. Carol wants to know if she can send you a note, she said. Just to say thank you. I paused. She doesn't need to. I told her that. She said it's not about need. I smiled. Give her my address. It surprised me, how gentle the world can feel when someone sees you without taking. Carol wasn't family. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She just wanted to acknowledge what had come before her. That's more than I ever got from people who shared my blood. Later that afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table, sorting the last of the papers. Not the legal ones. Those were done. These were the small ones. Grocery receipts from years ago. Postcards from old neighbours. A few of Paul's scribbled notes from when we used to leave each other reminders on the fridge. One said, Ev, don't forget the onions. And don't forget I love you. I kept that one. I let the rest go. There's a quiet joy in choosing what to carry forward. Not everything needs to come with you. Not even the parts that once held meaning. Especially not those. Around 3 Oaks, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a delivery, a small box wrapped in brown paper, tied with string. No return address. Inside, a jar of homemade jam and a handwritten card. Dear Evelyn, the rosemary is perfect. Thank you for leaving it. I sit beside it every morning now. I haven't written this much in years. It feels like the house is helping me remember how. I know it wasn't easy, letting go. I just wanted you to know. You gave something good. And it's still here. Carol. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then placed it carefully inside the blue notebook, between 2 pages that still smelled faintly of pencil and sun. I made toast, opened the jam, ate slowly. Let the quiet wrap around me like a shawl. Then I pulled my suitcase to the center of the room, opened it. Not for leaving, for beginning. I packed things not out of escape, but out of choice. A few sweaters, my notebooks, my good teacup, not everything, just enough. I didn't know where I'd go next, not far, just elsewhere, somewhere of my own making. The door no longer felt like a barrier. It felt like punctuation, a period, not a wall. That night I opened the notebook again. Day 10. She still hasn't apologized. That's not my wound to manage anymore. Carol sees me, though we've never met. That's enough. Some people give without touching. Some people take without noticing. I've lived through both. Now I choose neither. Then I turned off the lamp. And for the first time in decades, I slept not as a mother, not as a widow, not as a guest in someone else's plan. I slept as myself. They didn't let it go. 2 days later, I opened my email and found a message from Eric. Not formal this time. No lawyer speak, just a long, exhausting plea. Evelyn, I know you think this is about Phoenix, or the house, or Lauren. Maybe it is. But this decision, it's going to affect everyone. The kids are asking questions I can't answer. Lauren's not sleeping. We're trying to regroup. I'm asking, as your son-in-law, as someone who's tried to do right by this family, please reconsider. He signed it. Eric. Still your family, whether you like it or not. Still your family. As if family is a title you keep no matter the weight you place on someone's back. As if shared history means permanent permission. I closed the laptop. Didn't respond. The next day, Lauren called again. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message. Her voice was smaller now. Mum, we don't know where to go yet. We're trying to figure it out. The kids miss you. They don't understand what's happening. I keep telling them Grandma still loves them. Do you? I didn't answer that either. Not because the answer was no. Because love that gets asked like that, cornered, baited, guilt-wrapped, isn't a question. It's a test. And I'm done being tested. That afternoon, I walked to the bank. Not for any particular reason, just to update my address on file. The woman behind the counter was kind. Her nails were painted lavender. She asked me to confirm my signature. I did. The same signature that was on the mortgage. The same that sold the house. And now the same on a line that quietly, invisibly, moved me into another version of my own life. I walked home in the wind. Stopped by the corner florist. Bought a small potted rosemary. Not a bush, just a sprig. In a modest clay pot. The clerk smiled. For someone special? Yes, I said. For someone coming back to herself. At home, I placed it on the kitchen windowsill. I boiled water, made tea, no sugar. One sugar was for guests. I wasn't a guest anymore. I sat down, opened the notebook. Day 11. They want answers I don't owe them. They want comfort I no longer offer on demand. I want nothing from them. And that is freedom. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought of the hallway in the old house, the one I'd painted seafoam green, the one that never quite matched the sample card. I remembered Lauren at age 6, tracing her fingers along the baseboard, telling me it looked like the ocean. I believed her. But oceans change, and I've stopped waiting for the tide to turn. The key is gone. The house is gone. But I remain. I moved on a Tuesday. Not far, just 10 blocks east, into a building made of brick and quiet. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, no elevator. The stairs made my knees complain, but I welcomed the noise. It meant I was using them for myself. The apartment smelled like clean paint and second chances. Light poured through the kitchen window at just the right angle. I placed the potted rosemary on the sill. It looked smaller here, but braver. The landlord was a woman named June, widowed, wore her keys on a chain around her neck and called everyone honey, like it was punctuation. When she handed me the lease, she said, "Start fresh, Evelyn. Not clean, just fresh." I liked that. I unpacked slowly, not because I was tired, but because I could. Each item placed with intention. No one to ask why I kept the old chair. No one to tell me the curtains didn't match. I hung them anyway. Yellow, sun-coloured, defiant. Angela dropped by in the afternoon. "I just wanted to see the new place," she said, "and to say thank you." "For what?" "For letting me help you leave," she said. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a card, handwritten, no stamp. You didn't just sell a house, you reclaimed a voice. That's rarer than anything on the market. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. When she left, I sat at the table, ran my fingers over the card. Then I slid it into the notebook, beside Carol's. Outside, the wind picked up. I opened the window. Somewhere, a child laughed. Not my grandchild. Not my worry. Later that night, I walked to the small balcony that barely fit a chair. I brought my tea. I watched the lights flicker on across the street. A couple arguing softly. A cat on a windowsill. A man watering his plants in silence. Everyone trying. Everyone making space. The phone didn't ring. The door didn't knock. And for once, that didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. I picked up my notebook. Day 12. The air here feels like mine. No one's asking. No one's waiting. I don't owe anyone my presence. I give it now, when I choose. I closed the book, left it on the table, let the lamp burn a little longer than usual. Then I stood and turned out the light myself. 3 weeks passed before I heard her voice again. It came through the intercom. I was watering the rosemary when it buzzed. I didn't expect anyone. No deliveries, no plans. I pressed the button. Yes? Silence for a second. Then, Mom? It's me. My hand didn't shake. I placed the watering can on the counter, wiped my fingers on a dish towel. What do you need, Lauren? I just wanted to see you. Talk. In person. I didn't answer. She added quickly, I'm alone. No kids. No Eric. Still, I didn't press the door release. I looked at the rosemary, stronger now, greener, leaning toward the sun like it knew how. You can come up, I said. But just for a minute? She arrived with nothing in her hands, not even a coat, though the wind had picked up. She looked smaller in the doorway, like someone remembering how to stand. I stepped aside. She walked in, slow, cautious, like the air inside might be different. It's nice, she said. It's mine, I replied. We sat. Not across from each other, not beside, just nearby. That old distance still there, but different now, defined. She looked at the notebook on the table. You've been writing? Yes. She nodded. I haven't. I've just been reacting. I waited. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she said. That word, it didn't heal, but it landed, gently, like a leaf falling where it's supposed to. I didn't know how much I'd made you disappear, she added. I think I thought you were just there, like a fixture. I was, I said. Until I wasn't. She looked down. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive because it's expected. She blinked fast. Once. Twice. I miss the way things were. I don't, I said. And that wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. We sat a while longer. When she stood to leave, she didn't ask for a key. That, more than anything, told me she might be starting to understand. At the door, she turned. If the kids wanted to write you a letter, would that be okay? Yes, I said. Letters are welcome. Visits are earned. She nodded. Then she was gone. I made tea. Opened the notebook. Day 14. She came. Not to ask for what I owed, but to face what she'd spent. That's a beginning. I won't build a bridge, but I'll leave the shoreline open, and I will not disappear again. I closed the book, looked out the window, and let the day continue on my terms. If this story found you, stay. Leave a word. Share it. Not for me. For you. For every woman who sat on the bench and stood up different.